You also had a little, I guess, little run for Mid South Bill Watts, right?
Well, after I left the AWA, Jim Barnett brought me back again, and they were supposed to give me. Ole Anderson told me they were going to make me a big international star. He says we're going to make you bigger than Mil Mascaras. We're going to make you, you're going to be known all over the world. So, and they gave me a guarantee because I had a choice between going there or going to San Antonio. I told because I called Vince Senior and he said, "Where do you want to go?" I said, "Well, I'd like to help Joe Blanchard because they're the ones that got me started."
Right.
And I said, or but he Senior's the one that told me that Jim Barnett wanted me to go to Atlanta. So I said, well, Jim Barnett offered me a guarantee right away, and I called Tully Blanchard. I called Joe, and Tully was the booker, and I said I asked Tully to give me the same guarantee that they were going to give me in Atlanta, and he wouldn't give me the guarantee. Tully says, if you get over, you can make that. And by that time, I was smart enough to know that if he wanted me to get over, I was going to get over.
Right.
If he didn't want me to get over, I wasn't going to get over. So I didn't want to play the games anymore. I said, well, if you can't give me a guarantee, I'm going to go to where I'm going to get the guarantee. And I get to Atlanta, and Ole didn't come through. I kept asking him every week, when are you going to, I was also had been around the business enough. I had been around for about 5 years already, where I know that if they were going to push somebody, they'd start getting wins on TV. And it wasn't happening to me. They were holding me back. I wasn't getting beat,
Right.
but I wasn't getting pushed on TV like I saw other guys getting pushed. So all of a sudden, Bill Watts wants me to go to New Orleans to wrestle for him, and they started booking me over there. Ole cut my guarantee away from me, and all of a sudden I'm booked in Louisiana more than I am over here, and my wife has just had a baby. And I told my wife we're going to have to make a move because Ole starving me took away my guarantee, and Bill Watts was paying me pretty good.
Right.
So it's almost like they were working a program with me. They did work a program with me where they forced me to go over there. So I called Vince Senior and I said, Vince, Ole's not treating me too good here. I said, I'm going to have to make a move. I said, I think I'm going to have to go wrestle for Bill Watts in Louisiana. And Vince Senior says, yeah, it's not a bad move. So I was going to talk to Bill Watts about coming in there. I was going to be wrestling in Houston that night. Me and Junkyard Dog drove in. And when I get in, Ernie Ladd, God bless his soul, told me that Vince McMahon wanted me to come to New York now.
Right.
And this is the first time I ever heard this. And God, I was so happy when I heard that. He says, but Bill Watts also wants you to stay here.
Huh.
They both want you. He says, you're going to have to make a decision tonight. So when Bill Watts gets to the building, he calls me into an office and starts talking to me. And well, my wife is from New Jersey, and I knew that this was the number one territory in the world. I knew where I was going to go.
Right.
And Bill Watts says, don't make a decision, right away. Think about it over the weekend. Well, there was no decision to be made. My decision was already made. So then I ended up coming back in 1983.
Right.
My first booking for 1983 was May 10th, 1983. I'll never forget it because it was my birthday. So it was great.
So you didn't really get to know Bill Watts at all as a tyrant or anything like that?
No.
No, okay.
I had heard Mr. Wonderful was my best friend in the business. Mr. Wonderful was, he told me, he says, Tito, he says, it's a good place to work, a lot of miles. The trips are very long.
Yeah.
And he told me the payoffs are the shits.
Huh.
And so Bill Watts talked to me. He says they knew that I was best friends with Paul from Atlanta. He said, I know Paul's been talking to you. And I told Bill, I said, Bill, Paul speaks very highly of you. He says that you he learned more with you than anybody else. And he told me the truth. He says that there's a lot of miles to be driven, And that's one of the reasons that I didn't want to drive. I just had a baby. We just bought a condominium in Atlanta. I said, I didn't want to come over here and put all those miles. And then he told me that the payoffs are not very good. And then whenever I came and worked for him the first time, I came and I worked for 6 days and I got a paycheck for $2,500. It was more than I was making in Atlanta. And I told Paul, I said, Paul, I can, and I was underneath, you know. And I said, he paid me $2,500. He said, he really wants you. He said, but when you get there, your payoffs are going to go down, I guarantee you.
What are your memories of the match with JYD from Mid-South?
Well, JYD was, I mean, he was like Hulk Hogan here. I mean, he was the man.
Yep.
He was driving around in a big Mercedes. He was the top dog wherever he went. I mean, wherever we went, it was packed. I didn't wrestle against JYD. We wrestled in the same card.
Right.
But, I mean, talk about a nice person. He would rent a car for us and let us keep the car. And, you know, very seldom did he let us pay. You know, he would always buy dinner or, you know, buy whatever expenses we had on the road. He really took care of us.
What about Dusty? Did you have any run-ins at all with Dusty Rhodes on the roads?
No. I know that when I first started in 1977, I remember being in, I believe it was Miami, Florida. The first night I had driven in, and I had no idea who Dusty Rhodes was. And he was this blonde guy, heavy-set guy, walks into the dressing room, and, you know, he was behaving like he was somebody, you know, so I didn't know who he was. And I asked Tully Blanchard who he was, and he says, and my buddy Tully tells Dusty, he says, Merced wants to know who you are. You know, so he got heat at me right away. And I said, I never watched wrestling. How am I supposed to know who Dusty Rhodes is? But I don't think Dusty ever, you know, he never showed any animosity towards me. I mean, Dusty was the man in Florida.
Definitely. When you went back to work for Vince Jr., how different was he? How did he change?
Well, he was strictly business. I mean, he had a plan.
Did he tell you he was going national?
Well, every week, you know, like Pat Patterson and the guys that had been there and were agents every week and then they'd come in and say, we're gonna go into Montreal, we're gonna go into Minnesota, you know, and so he was, you know, going into a different. Every time we do TV, there was other markets that he was picking up.
Right.
At the time, we didn't know just exactly. We hadn't heard anything about WrestleMania. I mean, he came in. All of a sudden, we're taking this spots, and all of a sudden, they closed down shop for the other magazines. They didn't allow any magazines, and all of a sudden, there's no publicity for us. And like I remember, a lot of the wrestlers complaining because we were not getting any publicity in the magazines. None of us knew that he was planning to do everything himself.
Right.
And, you know, take completely over.
Watch thousands of exclusive shoot interviews right now on TitleMatchNetwork.com.